Hey, this is the Entertainment Advice Channel. What I want to talk about today is the topic of, was the golden age of Hollywood overrated? Which the golden age of Hollywood consists of movies made from the 1920s and 1960s, primarily in America, is what I'll be discussing today. So if you want to know if that era of movies is as great as people make it out to be, is overrated, then watch this video in order to find out. So now I mention that, let's get started. So when it comes to the topic of, was the golden age of Hollywood overrated, the simple answer to that question is yes, absolutely it was overrated. Okay, now was it as or I should say better than the more recent eras of movies like the 2010s and 2020s? Absolutely yes. When it comes to like the quality of how written the scripts were and so on and so forth. But when it comes to decades after that era of the golden age of Hollywood ended, from 1970s, 1990s, and at least to the middle of the 2000s, the simple answer to that question, to those follow-up eras after the golden age of Hollywood, is absolutely no. And the reason why I say that is simply down to one thing that is definitely true, okay? Variety, okay? Because the truth of the matter is, when it comes to the quality of anything being good, one of the things that make it the greatest is variety, okay? And because the truth of the matter is, human beings, we always want something new. We always want something different. If you just produce the same thing over and over and over again, even if it's good, it can get tiresome, okay? It's like if you produce a song that sounds really good, it sounds amazing and people really like it, but it's a part of the music genre where they just keep on producing songs that sound literally exactly the same, almost identical at least all the time, then it's not really the greatest genre of music ever, okay? Because it gets repetitive and tiresome. It's like you're looking at the same thing over and over again. So in short, human beings need variety, okay? And when you look at the era of that era, of course, movie making, you tend to notice there's 5 main categories that all movies follow, okay? One is movies that take place in the 1800s, okay? Whether it could be the American Civil War, of course, the Wild West era, because that era of movies, the 1920s to 1960s, specifically from the 1950s to the 1960s, is known for having a lot of spaghetti westerns. So, truth be told, yes, absolutely, there was way too many of those movies at that time, which is why it's one of the main categories of like literally all of the 5 main categories. All movies from that time period fall in. The second main category, of course, which should surprise absolutely no one, is World War I and World War II movies. There was way too many World War I and World War II movies that were produced in that era, which, even though some of them were good, if you make too much of anything, it can get tiresome. The third one, which should surprise absolutely no one, is an extremely huge amount of mafia movies that were produced in that era as well. There is just an extreme oversaturation of mafia movies to the point it's actually even a bit comical, okay? The fourth one, that also I feel should surprise absolutely no one, is the amount of movies that talk about the lifestyles of the rich and famous, and the scandals they got involved in, and and exaggerating, and of course it has the same pretentious, at times at least, depending on the movie and the director, messages about how great, their lives were, but at the same time, how the decadence corrupted them and made them horrible people. The stuff you've heard a million times so ever since then, but definitely was something you heard a million times back then. And the fifth one, of course, movies that talked about things relating to more like ancient history, things that happened thousands of years ago, whether it happened in Mesopotamia, ancient Greece, ancient Rome, all that type of stuff. Those are the 5 main categories, literally just about all movies from that era fall. Of course, there were exceptions to the rule, but pretty much every movie fell in those 5 main categories, okay? And the truth of the matter is, of course, no shit, it's not saying that there's not any good movies from that era that, of course, did that stuff, but you also have to keep in mind, which I think should absolutely surprise fucking no one, if you just have 5 main categories of movies for the span of literally 4 decades, in other words 40 years to be more exact, just kind of fall in those 5 main categories, you can obviously which is surprising no one, get a bit repetitive and boring. While when you look at obviously decades afterwards, from like the 1970s, 1980s, 1990s, all the way to the at least the mid 2000s, before the trash heaps that were the late 2000s movies, for that matter. Okay, the truth of the matter is, for those decades afterwards, that the golden age of Hollywood, the amount of topics were more varied. They didn't just talk about those five main things. They had many different topics. They had movies that talked about crime, movies that talked about mystery, or they had movies that talked about space travel. They had movies that talked about obviously, a lot of things that was going on in America at the time, and stuff, like the decay of American cities and stuff. There's a bunch of different things that they talked about, and we can't, of course, forget about, of course, the infamous dystopian movie genre. So the truth of the matter is, those decades that came afterwards, they had a greater variety. So there had something for everybody, and not just something for everybody, but even for every mood. Because even if you're someone who might particularly like something, not all the time you want to watch something that's the same thing, because it gets kind of boring and redundant and tiring. So if you have something that covers many different topics, like easily 10 to 20 different topics, at least between that range, for that matter, which pretty much every movie, the amount of variety of topics every decade after the 1960s had, for that matter, you'll quickly realize it's actually more enjoyable because it's much more variety, to be quite blunt and honest with you. So to answer your question, to say that a widespread span of time from 1920s to 1960s was the best time period, when it's sort of like five main categories, where easily each decade afterward had a much greater variety of stuff, it's just a foolish and misguided statement, okay? And as the truth, and don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that movies from that time period didn't have good movies. I'm certain there was good movies from that time period for the golden age of Hollywood. I'm just saying that if you want to be considered the greatest era, it's not just down to how well written your movies are, like obviously how well the scripts are, how little plot holes, if any plot holes you have, for that matter, to, of course, how well the story develops, more like, like, is there a good balance between story and action, all that type of shit, for that matter. To be quite blunt and honest with you, okay, when it comes to, of course, no surprise, to things that determine how good a movie is, you can have all those things, but if the variety of topics you're talking about is very limited, it can get quite boring, okay, and tiring. It's like you watch the same movie over and over again. There's only so many exact plot types you can come up with, until it's like, I've come up with everything that's already been thought of before. There's only so many different unique storylines based on every narrative you can think of, which is use mafia movies as an example. There's only so many like specific plot lines where it could be a story about rival factions fighting against each other to see who's the most powerful, or it could be maybe a mafia movie about revenge because somebody got his relative killed, or it could be maybe a movie about for that matter, that's a plot twist, somebody who works for a family that actually got his own relative, like his own father, killed or something. Like, there's only so many exact plot types you can come up with, until you just run out of ideas, okay, whether it's mafia movies or any type of movie genres, and specifically we have really five main movie genres in general as a whole. So to answer your question, in short, to say that it was a terrible era of movies, I absolutely think it's stupid to say, but to say it was really the golden age, like the greatest era of movies ever, I completely disagree. I do not believe in that, and just straight up, it's bullshit. So in short, to answer your question, the golden age of Hollywood is overrated. I'm not saying it wasn't good, but it's definitely not as good as people make it out to be, okay? Which, now that I mention that, it's time to get to the message of the story, which is that just because somebody says something is amazing and really good does not necessarily mean you have to believe it, okay? Because a lot of these critics nowadays say all sorts of things like, oh, this was the greatest thing ever, blah 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 blah, but then you actually look at this stuff and it's like, okay, it's not saying it was terrible, but it's not as great as people make it out to be. So in short, to sum things up, even as much as possible. Something can be, I'm not saying things, these experts say are the most amazing things ever are not bad, or I should say are bad, but form your own independent opinions. Don't just listen to what everybody says. For that matter, form your own independent opinions. As the more you do that, the more we can come closer to making entertainment great again instead of the shit fest that it is now. Okay? Because you can learn um from the lessons of the past, the mistakes they made, as well as their triumphs, and have a unique perspective on things as a result of that you can apply to making things better. And that is the honest truth. So anyway, this is my video. This is all to say. Simply put, if you like this video, remember to thumbs this video up and the subscribe button. And simply put it, I am out. So bye.